Onto something slightly different now. We are in alternative app stores beyond kind of the Google and Apple are an ever more important feature of the modern marketplace. Hardware vendors and various other partners are kind of creating their own specific stores, and there's more and more opportunities for you to reach audiences in a different way. And we're going to be talking about that specific situation now with Pedro Dinis, or Denise, is it? What is it? How should I
It's
pronounce that?
close. It's close. Dinis. Dinis.
Dinesh. Okay, well, I wasn't right either way. But hi, Pedro. So yes, you're here to talk about alternative app stores and how you can work with Catappult to take advantage of them, right? Is that's the gist?
Yeah, that's correct. That's correct. I'm
Cool.
assuming.
Well, don't worry, we're a little bit behind, but that's fine. You've got exactly 10 minutes behind, but you'll get your full time for talks and questions after. So don't feel you have to rush for anything. So just
Lovely.
whenever you're ready to launch in, I'm gonna disappear into the background, and I'll come back with questions at the end, if that's okay. Are you all good to go?
Yep. Can you see my screen already?
I can. It says growth, which is
Okay,
good.
wonderful.
We like growth.
That's
And where are
exactly
you
it.
based, Pedro? I didn't ask. That was very remiss of me. Where are you
Yeah,
based?
Portugal, Lisbon.
Portugal, another country today. Fantastic, beautiful Lisbon, a beautiful
It
place.
is. It is.
All right, so we've been Spain, Ireland, Shanghai, and now we're in Lisbon in Portugal. So over to you, Pedro. The stage is yours.
Yeah, thanks, Chris. And yeah, just keeping on the growth topic, and obviously, no matter what, being a small developer or a big publisher, eventually it becomes a topic of your day-to-day strategy and operations. And that's no different from us. I'm trying to move my slides, but just okay. It's not too different from us, but whereas 99% of businesses in the mobile gaming space are all focusing on the two main channels, we decided to focus on less competitive markets, looking for opportunities other than Google Play and iOS. And right now, it's been representing for us close to 20 billion downloads a year opportunity. And this is exactly the alternative app stores. That's what I'm talking about today. How to grow on these alternative app stores and essentially sharing with you our experience on dealing with alternative app stores and some data points and insights about the market, as well as some use case scenarios, some cases and real cases that we are working on. And what is Catappult? Catappult is a distribution and a publishing partner for alternative app stores, and we have been helping developers and other publishers to distribute and scale on these channels. We essentially partner with developers on a distribution or a co-publishing business model, taking their game, their Google Play game, their Android version, publishing it and distributing it in these channels. And when we started, we faced a very big challenge of trying to work with all of these app stores simultaneously. So having to integrate, several SDKs, having several APKs to maintain for every single store, and it became a nightmare very fast. And not only it's a lot of work, but working with these channels, it's been improving, but it wasn't always the easiest task. And that's the challenge we focused on solving, because one alternative app store individually doesn't represent that big of an opportunity, but all of them combined can unlock a very interesting potential audience to reach. And our solution is simply a technology that allows you to distribute your games to all these channels with a single integration, single APK, control everything on one console, and making at least the operations easier on your day-to-day. And that's the first insight that I want to share, that this is, you either get a partner or hire someone. Unfortunately, this isn't a growth strategy that can be managed in autopilot, and I will show you why in a minute. But the idea of getting your game in just more stores and start getting some traction without either the time or the investment is unfortunately unrealistic. um, there are no shortcuts, and this will require time, knowledge, and some investment at least. Obviously, the follow-up question is whether it's worth it or not. And at least what we have been seeing is um, a big growth year on year in the number of downloads as well as users from these channels. So we ended up 2020 with close to 20 billion downloads across all the apps that we work with and all the channels. And what we can see from the early numbers of 2021 is that it's not slowing down. So the market is growing, already representing a good share of the Android users. And given the investment of the OEMs in their own stores, it's very likely that they will keep this momentum and take some share in the Android market as well. And obviously, this growth throughout the years, this is relevant to two things. One is obviously more and more stores getting into the market, as well as taking some share from the Android market. And two is we are starting working with more and more developers and distributing more apps. And essentially, this will organically generate more downloads. But when it comes to where these downloads are coming from, um, currently we are seeing a lot of traffic being generated from India, Southeast Asia, or Asia in general. That's definitely the region that is represented the most. But it's also growing a lot on Portuguese and Spanish-speaking countries. Um, but a very interesting behavior that we have been seeing so far is also the increasing penetration in these tier one markets. So United States, UK, Germany, Europe in general. In the last few years, we have been seeing relative growth on all of these countries, which all of a sudden at least makes it more appealing from a revenue perspective, because obviously it was very easy for us to generate some downloads, but sometimes it wasn't that easy to gain the revenue traction that we want to generate growth. And because of this, the split of revenue per country has been changing slightly. We work a lot on having localized payment solutions so that users from countries which struggle to make transactions on Google Play have at least an alternative solution to download the games that they want to play. And because of this, plus the huge number of traffic from tier one and tier three markets, we used to see a different split that I'm showing here on this slide. But the United States has been growing significantly, and obviously getting the place number one from the country that generate more revenue with us at the moment, followed by a lot of countries from Europe normally. And that's the insight number two that I wanted to share is there's a lot of growth potential in Southeast Asia and Asia in general, but also it's becoming very, very interesting from an opportunity perspective in tier one markets, as well as, well, United States and Europe in general. Now, when it comes to UA and marketing, so obviously that's a very important part of our strategy. Once we have a new game to distribute, what we'll start doing is cooperate with all the alternative channels that we work with, to essentially start promoting the games that we work on, and start to scale it up on these channels. And it's definitely an interesting experience because a lot of these stores obviously they are not as developed as as iOS and Google Play. So 90% of them still run on direct deals. So you won't be able to buy traffic programmatically. And what this means is, CPIs ended up being very predictable, but operationally it's an extra effort. Obviously, it's very demanding to run and manage all these campaigns on a direct deal basis, and it's also makes it very interesting opportunity for games to potentially acquire valuable users at a lower cost, but also challenging for games which rely on very low CPIs. And just to exemplify this is we have been seeing this behavior across a lot of different games that we are working on. Obviously, audience segmentation is just one possible variable of the CPI, but taking it as an example, and two different game genres with different UA profiles, one with narrow audience and tendency for higher CPI, another with low CPI and broad audience. When we try to scale these on alternative channels, the scenario we find is that since we are working on a direct deals basis, our range of possible CPIs tends to be smaller. So which is a good opportunity for some, but a challenge for others. For these games that usually see higher CPIs, it becomes an interesting opportunity to get cheaper valuable users, as you won't be seeing as high CPIs as you would see programmatically. But on the other hand, for games that rely on lower CPIs, it's and a variety of factors, it becomes a challenge, and they need to approach it very smartly. And there are some interesting strategy that can be applied. One interesting behavior we have been noticing is what follows after either pausing or reducing spend on these channels. And this is a short visualization of the daily new users for one game that we are currently co-publishing. And what we have been noticing is that it's easier to sustain the level of organic downloads after the initial push, because obviously there is way less competition than in Google Play Store. So having less competitors to worry about trying to get on our spot in the charts, it becomes easier to at least maintain it and get this level of organic download stable throughout a longer period of time. And being able to play with these factors makes it possible to have great margins on the investment once you are able to sustain a good number of organic downloads, even if at an early stage you are running on a low return on ad spend. If the game has a solid ARPU, then you will be able to at least play around with it, and eventually on the long term, it might be able to get you some very good return on the money that you spend trying to acquire these users on these channels. And that's the insight about this topic. Challenging for, well, I said hyper casual, but challenging for games that rely on lower CPIs than average, but can be very favorable for games with solid ARPU. And obviously, showing some of these visualizations, it might pass the idea that it's very easy to gain some traction, but I don't want to make it sound that way. That it's very easy to achieve great results, because in some cases it can take time. This is just an example of a game which took us some time to gain traction, and we started working together like 2 years ago, though. So a lot of things changed since then, because a couple of years ago, there was a lot of bureaucracy working with these alternative channels. Operationally, was way more complex than what it is today. And also some of the stores back in the days didn't even have any way to run some campaigns. So it was definitely harder to at least getting this momentum of growth, and it used to take way more time than we are able to do it in today. So just be patient sometimes. It's not always easy to gain the traction you are looking for in these channels. And because of this experience we had with these games in the past while trying to scale them, we had to come up with some growth hack strategy to leverage. And that's essentially just using content and influencers. So we have our own platform, so Aptoid. So Catappult is a distribution company. We are in the same group, and essentially Aptoid is an alternative app store, which is currently seeing around 350 million users per year, 10 billion downloads per year, and close to 1 million of different apps and games. And obviously, this is a very piece of the puzzle for our strategy, trying to grow these games on these stores, because our platform allows us to gain this early traction by doing some localized articles about the games we distribute. So whenever we have a new game, we start producing this regular content on our store. And normally what we see is that the engagement is very good. So this is definitely at least a low cost way start, getting in touch with the users and trying to engage with them and getting them to play the game and see how it looks. And as a follow-up, what we do is pair it with our influencers program, whereby we partner with several content producers, mainly from YouTube, to create content for the games we publish. Normally, we search for content creators that are already producing videos from the games that we work on, partnering with them then on a regular schedule of releases for videos. And we also have this bonus scheme that then creates, so essentially the influencer himself is able to get some reward from the users who download our game. So obviously this creates just a loop um, to sustain and make this growth go on. And with this strategy, our most success case has been Lars Mobile, which has been growing very rapidly with us. And when compared to Google Play, this is it's already some older data from last year, but by the middle of last year, we were already able to at least reach close to 25% of the Google Play revenues. And this was very interesting for us because we were growing on markets where the game wasn't present still. So the game was trying to grow in some specific regions. We were helping them and at least reaching audience that they weren't able to reach. And we were able to at least see some very nice numbers, month on month. And currently what we have been seeing is a sustainable growth across all the stores that we are partnering with. And that brings us to the last question. When you grow this rapidly on alternative app stores, you have to wonder whether it is incremental revenue or if you are cannibalizing your Google Play traffic. And what we found out is when comparing the Google Play data, since we started working with Lars Mobile, is that the revenue and download numbers from Google Play didn't see any negative impact. So revenue kept stable, downloads kept stable, while we were able to grow on the alternative app stores, which was great, and making it a very, very interesting new stream of incremental revenue. So this is our last insight. And essentially what I wanted just to wrap it up is just taking this 2-3 notes, which is, it's not always easy to work with these alternative app stores. Sometimes it can take time to get some growth, to at least get some traction. But it eventually just becomes a very interesting new stream of revenue, sustainable. And what we have been noticing is definitely that from these channels, games are able to at least reach audiences which they wouldn't just keeping them being distributed on Google Play. So obviously this makes it grow more just globally than when compared with a single Android store only. So hopefully this is get you some better views on how to work with all of these channels. Open to any question if you guys have any.
Hello there. Hello.
Of Chris.
I am back, and I'm going to try and manage a number of questions that have kind of come in. It's about 6 or 7. Some of them I think you might have covered, but I'll try and get through those. That was great, Pedro. That was really interesting. I was busily noting things down as you were going there. Thanks for sharing, for being so open, sharing so much data and specific case studies. It always kind of helps when you've got actual kind of numbers and specific cases. And yeah, it's, as I said in my little brief intro as you were coming into the room, it is a rapidly kind of growing space, and hardly surprisingly. Well, one question I'm going to leap on related to that in the middle of these questions straight away. Obviously, in China, which is a huge market and has its own rules and stuff, third-party Android stores are the dominant distribution platform largely because Google Play is effectively banned there. But do you think we could ever see that sort of flip occur in other markets? I'm not sure when, obviously iOS and Google Play are very dominant at the moment, but do you think you could ever foresee a time where the third-party stores start to really kind of challenge?
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely, obviously it's very speculative, right? But again, I think that I mentioned this, but we have been noticing a big investment from OEMs on their own stores.
Yeah.
And again, with Huawei and App Gallery ditching Google Play services. So
Yeah.
it's already a sign, right? So at least they are making the steps on that direction. We have been noticing the number of users growing in countries which they weren't there 2 years ago. So number of users from United States have been growing very rapidly.
Yeah.
So outside Asia has been growing very rapidly. So although it's maintaining, or the biggest market is still Asia, I think that in the next few years we will definitely see growth in America, Europe. The question is whether it will be able to take a significant share of the market from Android and eventually compete with iOS. That's
Yeah.
definitely a very good question.
But the growth is so I've got a question here. I think you probably covered this, but you sort of mentioned a bit. I just get through it while we're talking. Is there are a lot of different kinds of third-party stores for different reasons from different people. Presumably, is the OEMs, the Huawei and the Samsungs are leading, or not? Are there other kind of, what other types of store? I mean, how many are out there, and what other types of stores should people can consider?
Yeah, there are a few, which is very interesting. Obviously, some of them rely on their phone sales to grow, right? So because they selling their phones, they will be able to get into a bigger market. But also there are some stores which are very localized. For example, we have Cafe Bazaar, which just distribute for people from Iran, which obviously struggle to get content from Google Play. You have Oppo, which is very popular in India. Vivo as well. So there's currently a very big list. I would definitely pay close attention to Xiaomi, Huawei, Oppo, Vivo, and Cafe Bazaar eventually.
Yeah, no, fair enough. And I don't know if you said this. I was making notes, so I might have missed it. Is there any sort of rough scale at the moment, or a percentage of how these alternate app stores compare? Like, are we talking about 4 or 5% of the global market, or is it? I guess it will change. Obviously, in China, it's very different from place to place. Is there an idea of sort of scale currently where we're at?
So that's one of the challenge that we face today, which is getting some data from these channels is very difficult. So what we do is obviously, since we distribute across all of them, we can kind of extrapolate. I mean, but obviously just throwing out some very rough numbers, 10, 15, 20% best case scenario of Android market share. I guess eventually that's already a stretch, but obviously when we try to extrapolate, I would see this at least as a very rough number.
Okay, well, that's again, it is considerable. I mean, this is overall markets are multi-billions now. There's a question here which I don't know if you know, but because is there a I don't know, you might not know this, but I'm going to throw it to you anyway. Is there a best store for startups in MENA to talk to, in the MENA market? Are there particular stores focused in the Middle East market? Do you have insight into that? You can say no if you don't worry.
No, so that's the thing. So there's definitely, I'm missing the name because they are a few, but one or two might be they are relevant. So if this is someone that is actually looking to grow on this market, feel free to, I don't know if Chris, if there's a way to share my email, but feel free to reach me out.
Yeah.
I'll be
Well,
able to help
just if you can give it to us, we'll type it in here if you're happy to share specifically with them. If they can come, they can probably come and grab you afterwards. After the talk, I've now brilliantly answered that question, so I can't speak to them directly. But yeah, if that person either wants to email me or direct message me, we can connect you, and Pedro can assist you with that. Okie dokie. Sorry, I don't know. There's a question here from Susanna Loffren, who said, "Would you suggest this for hyper?" She's a hyper casual developer, I guess. Is this space particularly useful for hyper casual?
So it's definitely, it's very challenging. Is obviously, I guess that in one end is way less competitive than Google Play, obviously, but with hypercasual, we will be relying obviously on the virality of your game. You'll be relying on the lower CPI, and that's a basis which is very hard to work on these alternative channels. So if the focus is hypercasual, I would definitely keep focusing on iOS and Google Play.
Yeah.
Other than just
It's much more a pure scale
yeah.
scale game there, right? Yeah, but I guess the more the merrier. One of the questions I had, which wasn't raised here, but I'm maybe you've answered it again. So I apologise because I try and
No worries, Chris.
dip in and out. But was with the what's the kind of overhead for developers? One of the, we used to work with Samsung a load of projects when they were doing Barda and Tizen and try and help with the developer onboarding a little bit, not in the same way as you, where we're not that sort of business, but I know at the time one of the issues was it was quite, and I think you might mention this, it was a little bit fiddly to do that. Is it much lighter now for developers to kind of get involved in this, or is it all, obviously a company like yours makes it easier, I guess. Is that the way to do it?
No, it's not, well, it's slightly lighter, but it's still operationally is very heavy for developers. That's why you are seeing, or we are seeing, a lot of different solutions to help you access all these channels simultaneously. So that's exactly what Catappult focus on, right? Trying to at least getting it easier to reach all these channels.
Yeah. Okay. No, and no, that's fine. And yeah, you've kind of mentioned the different stores already. We've done that. I think are there any, I guess one of the things that you're talking about, one of the benefits of this is because it's that they're less saturated spaces, and I guess these developers platforms are often looking to offer special, to have special content for their users. Have you got experience of doing specific offers, within for certain of these stores, like, I don't know, offering extra in-game items, or the the store owner, the sort of the app store owner, subsidizing some interesting kind of offers for consumers? I think there was talk of various in-game, like, $5 in-game and all this sort of stuff in the past. Is that still happening?
You see some of the stores, working on that basis. Not that many. So App Gallery eventually, obviously, it also depends of the scale of the game that you are working on, right? If you already have some numbers from Google Play and
Yeah.
you are now looking to scale it on other channels, you'll be able to obviously build the business case to get some, eventually, a very nice integration fee for these channels. But other than App Gallery, from my way, I'm not seeing this being done on a very regular basis.
Yeah. Okay. I think we're just about at time, so I'll end it there. If you can direct message me in the chat your email, we've probably got it somewhere, but I can share it with the gentleman here, and you guys can connect separately about some of those specific questions. But you obviously feel free, if you want to share it with everybody, you can do that as well. I don't know how oh, you have, fine, fair enough. You're much, some people don't like to do that, but you've done it. Okay, so that's to me, right, that's fine. All right, well, thank you so much, Pedro. Obviously, if you are looking at app stores, Catappult are a kind of one-stop shop, a place to go to. You should go and definitely talk to them. Obviously, as demonstrated just now, this guy knows his onions. He knows where the bodies are buried, and these are the people to talk to. And it sounds like a fascinating opportunity. So do spend the rest of the week getting in touch with Pedro and other members of the Catappult team, and yeah, and good luck.
Thanks, Chris.
And on that
Cheers.
note, I'm going to send you into digital ether and move on. Thank you very much.
Cheers.